How's everyone's week?
Good.
Good? Good.
Great.
My week was good. Can I, before we start, can I just brag on my buddy real quick? You guys know Jens, of course? He's playing drums. You know today was his first day playing drums? Like he learned like 3 days ago he was playing drums. Isn't that awesome? No. Well, anyway, hello guys, my name is Lance, and welcome to Elevate. I'm so glad that you guys are here. We have so many cool stuff coming up. So get plugged in. Whatever you're doing, make sure you guys are plugged in this summer. It's going to be a lot of fun. So we're in this series called It's Complicated, right? And we're talking about relationships and the importance of them. And do you guys remember what was the verse that we talked about last week? Or at least what the context of the verse?
Psalms 112:7.
No.
Philippians 2:3-4.
Philippians 2:3-4. And Mirth, can you say what it is? Or why don't you read it from the screen? That's also good. Go ahead, Mirth. Can you read it out loud?
Oh, do nothing out of selfish ambition, but in humility. Consider others better than yourselves. Each of you should look not only to your own interests, but also to the interests of others.
Drew, what does it mean?
Are you kidding me?
Come on, Drew.
It means to honestly look at other people first. Just to consider their interests, their actions, everything about them. Just to be considerate of them before you think of yourself.
Yeah, you're thinking of other people's well-being before you're thinking of your own. So I was thinking about that a lot this week. Just thinking about, do I actually do that? I hope you guys are thinking about that too this week. Like, do you think of other people's interests before your own? Because I know I do that with some people, like we talked about last week. I do that with my close friends. I do that with my siblings and my mom and dad. But do I do it with everyone? Because that's what the Bible's talking about. It's not just saying do it for the people that you're super close with. It's talking about doing it for people in general. And that's really, really difficult. So I spent a whole lot of time thinking about that this week before Monday. And then I had another thought dominate this week. You guys know that I ran the Boston Marathon. And so the whole leading up to the Boston Marathon, I'm just pumped about it. Like, this is going to be my first official marathon. I was supposed to run New York City last year, but it got canceled, and we did our own thing in Central Park. So this is going to be my first official marathon. And I'm super nervous about it because last time I wanted to hit 4:22. That was my goal, 4 hours, 22 minutes, because that's what my uncle did back in 1983, and he passed away. He actually, 1 year ago, passed away tomorrow. So tomorrow's going to be a real cool day of celebration and thinking about Uncle Roy and all. So that was what I did for him, and then this year I was like, all right, well, I want to hit 4 hours. 4 hours, that's like the perfect marathon time, because people always ask, like, how'd you do in the marathon? And they're secretly wondering, did you hit 4 hours? Because that's like the mark to get. So that's my goal the whole time. All right, Lance, just get to the finish line in 4 hours. That's all I wanted to do. So it was super emotional day beforehand. I'm running with Run Anyway, which is the team that we ran for. It's a foundation that we started. You guys know Todd Kelly, who was running with me, one of my best friends. And I had 4 other teammates that ran with us. And as I'm running, I see all of them throughout the race. And the last thing I say to them is, I'll see you at the finish line. We even had a setup of, hey, at the end of the race, where should we meet? We'll meet at the finish line. Because that's just a very popular place, right? So all I know is that's where we're going to meet. And then I see my cousin Christian. I think a lot of you guys have seen him, big 6'4" Norwegian guy. He jumps on the course with me. There he is in the town of Wellesley, Massachusetts, the town that we ran for. But my cousin Christian, he jumped on the course with me for 4 miles. And that's Uncle Roy's middle son, Christian. And so that was awesome too. Like, I get to run with my cousin. It's called bandit. You just kind of jump on and you run with people. You're not allowed to do it. If they catch you, you're in trouble, but they don't care. Like, they say don't do it, but he got to run with me for 4 miles. And that was awesome. The last thing I say to Christian is, I'll see you at the finish line. And he's a fan. So he's not going to be on the course. He's going to be in the crowd. And so that's the last thing I say to him. He takes off. He jumps on the subway, and I know he's going to make it there. No problem. A mile before that, I see my parents, and I get to, give them a big hug, and they tell me that they're proud of me. And the last thing Mom yells to me is, "See you at the finish line." I'm like, great. My parents are going to be there. I can't wait. So I take off, and I'm feeling really good. I'm doing the math as I'm running, thinking, okay, I can get there. I can get there in 4 hours. Just keep this pace. Keep this pace. I can do it. Mile 23, I get this huge knot in my hamstring. Have you guys ever had that before? It feels like a Charlie horse. It basically feels like someone grips your muscle on your leg and just squeezes it for dear life. It's a horrible pain. So that hits, and I had to go off the course for like, I think it was like 30 seconds, and luckily I was right in front of a chiropractic school, believe it or not. And the lady like flexed my leg, and she's like, sit down. I was like, if I sit down, I won't be able to get up. So that was really painful. And then finally the guy, he's like, finish line's 2 miles away, man, just go. So I start running, and I know that if I slow down, my hamstring will tighten up again. So I do the only logical thing. I speed up. I just keep going faster. So for those last 4 miles, I am booking it. And my lungs are hurting, my body's hurting, everything's mad at me. It's just like, just go. And then I have Roy written on my chest, because marathons, you'll write your name on it, and then people will yell, like, go, whoever you are. So people are yelling, go Roy, for me, because that's what I have on my chest, and that gives me more motivation. So I'm just cooking down, and I see the 25.2 mark. It says 1 mile, so I'm just like, here we go, Lord, like, let's go. And so I see the finish line up ahead, and that's one of the best feelings. And I see the ticker, and the ticker says 4 hours. But I know that in my corral, I started 10 minutes later. So I crossed the finish line 3 hours and 50 minutes. Thank you. Yeah. So that was awesome. Like, that was a huge victory. I crossed the finish line. I do what every generic person does. I put my arms in the air. In my mind, though, I was going to run by and like do this like jump. I'm like, people are going to be taking photos. It's going to be great. And because they take a photo of you as you finish. I'm like, this is going to be so cool. But I'm exhausted. So it's like, I'm lucky that I get my arms in the air. And I'm like, woo! So I crossed the finish line. It was awesome. So I'm looking around for Christian, Mom, and Dad. I'm like, oh, they're not there. Like, they're supposed to be here. They're supposed to be at the finish line. So I'm a little disappointed, but I get a phone call from Dad. And he's like, we couldn't find parking. Mom dropped me off 2 blocks away, and I'm trying to find you. And I was like, all right, walk to me. I'll walk to you. And he gets a block away, and I was like, Dad, stay where you are. I'll come to you. So walk a block away from the finish line, and I'm so disappointed. My mom and dad are supposed to be at the finish line. They're supposed to see me finish, so they didn't get to. I was like, all right, well, at least Christian's there somewhere. I know he was probably snapping photos. He got to see me, so that's great. Then I see my dad, and I hop over this barrier, and I hug him over the other one, and I say, Dad, 350. And he's like, I'm so proud of you. Uncle Roy's so proud of you. Good job. So it was great. Such a good feeling. At that point, all I know is that I beat all my teammates, and they're all behind me. I don't know where Todd is. I don't know where Wesley Ann is. I just know that they're behind me somewhere. My other teammate, Ashley, was supposed to finish exactly 4 hours also. So I look at Dad. I give him a hug. I'm like, Dad, we got to get to the finish line. And I see, boom. I see the side of the building just like blow up. And I'm like, what is that? My first reaction was, that is a thoughtless way to celebrate. I thought it was like a cannon going off for like some cool runner going across. Like, yay, this guy finished. And I'm like, Dad, that's stupid. And he's like, that's an explosion. We look again, I see another one go off, a block it or whatever down. So I see that one. That's when I realize something's going on. You get like that scared feeling. You don't know what's really going on. And I just know that that's the finish line. I can see the finish line, I can see the stands, and I can see the explosion. So of course I'm super scared. The only thing I know is that Todd's behind me, and he's shooting for 4 hours. I know Ashley's behind me going for 4 hours, same with Wesley Ann. So I'm like, Dad, we have to get to the finish line. Let's go. We have to get to the finish line. So he didn't understand why we had it, because he wanted us to get safe, but I was like, Dad, we got to go. So the only reason that we couldn't get there is because there's crowds of people running towards us. Like, everyone, of course, is running away from this danger, but I wanted to get to my friends and say, we have to get to this finish line. Eventually people started yelling, like, hey, there's more bombs, we don't know what's going on. And you don't know what's going on. It's mass confusion. You don't know if there's more bombs going off in the other parts of the course, if it was like a chain effect. You're not sure what's happening. Total confusion. So I jump on the phone with one of my running mentors. His name's Craig Williams. He's Connor Williams' dad. Awesome guy, one of my good friends. And I call him up, and he's like, hey, great finish, because he's tracking us online. We all have chips on our bib, and he's tracking us. And I said, Craig, a bomb went off the finish line. Where are Todd and Wes? Because I know he's tracking all of us. And he's like, don't worry. He's like, Todd and Wes, they're not near the finish line. They're a couple miles back. They're okay. I was like, okay, great. I got to go. So I hung up the phone. I called my brother-in-law, and I said, Michael, what's happening? Because he's like so tied into the news. And he's like, something happened. There's a bomb going off. He's just like, get out of Boston. He's like, there's reports already that something more is going to happen. And I tell him, call Mom and Dad, or call Mom, tell her that we're okay, call Kyle and Kara. I knew they're both at work, so they're not going to worry right away, but Michael's so attached to the news that he'll know. So I find out that, I know Mom and Dad are okay, so I'm with Mom and Dad. And then finally Dad grabs my arm and says, Lance, we got to go. So he grabs my arm, and we leave. And then I start calling other people. I want to update Facebook right away and let people know, because people know, of course, that we're at the Boston Marathon. I know you guys are thinking, Lance and Todd are at the Boston Marathon. I'm sure people are concerned. We start calling people, or I start calling out, phones are dead. They shut off all the cell phones in Boston, which is super, super scary. Because we're so tied in, And I know Todd's running with his cell phone. I know Wesleyan has her cell phone. I know Mom has her cell phone. Everyone has a cell phone. But they're not working. And I know Cousin Christian is at the finish line. And I'm like, oh, Lord, something bad's going to happen. I'm going to get this terrible news. This bad news is going to hit that something happened to Christian. And it's going to be totally my fault because he came to support me. And he wanted to see me finish. And I'm like, Lord, this is a year after Uncle Roy passed. Like, Aunt Teresa's not going to be able to take it. Like, this is going to be terrible. And you start playing all these scenarios in your mind, right? Like, what am I going to, I don't even want to talk about it. Like, what, but you're thinking like all these like terrible, terrible things, right? So we knew where Mom was when we had Mom's intersection. So we're like, okay, well, let's find this intersection, some random small street in Boston. And so we're working our way there, but we don't know where in the world Christian is. And Dad said, all right, listen, we'll find Mom, and then we'll wait till the cell phones come on, and Christian will call us. And I'm like, okay, no, that's not good enough. I'll be freaking out. I was like, we'll find Mom, and then I'll start searching the medical tents. And if you guys heard or saw some of the pictures, I was right by the medical tent. So I got to see, unfortunately, those people get strolled in on the stretchers and doing CPR. I saw the one lady, unfortunately, who didn't make it. I'm just praying, Lord, be with her family. This is going to be such a rough day for her. And then I see the gentleman in the wheelchair, which you guys have probably seen, who was right next to the bomb and just ripped him apart. And I'm just like, oh, Lord. Like, that guy's life is forever changed right now. And I'm thinking, did that just happen to hundreds of people? Because I could see the finish line. I could see the stands empty. I'm like, why are they empty? Did they blast empty? Like, are more people hurt? Like, you just don't know. So I'm thinking, let me just get to the medical tent, make sure Christian's not there. And I'm like, Lord, even if he lost a limb, he's going to be okay. And I could comfort him and be with him and just say, okay, you're going to live. It's not going to be, your life's not over. So right then I'm just thinking, Lord, just restore my legs so I can run. Because after a marathon, you're exhausted, right? You just gave everything because you think that's going to be the big event of the day, And then, right then, these big arms come and wrap around us from behind, and it's Christian. And he's like, I saw you from the window, I was so excited. And I was so excited, I grabbed Christian just as Dad did, and I punched my dad in the face. So, I was like, I'm so sorry, Dad, but Christian! And Christian's this big 6'4" guy, so I'm like nuzzled in his chest, and I wouldn't let him go. And you just like sigh of relief. I'm like, okay, Christian's okay. Lord, thank God. Thank you so much. It's still mass confusion. I don't know where Todd, I don't know where Wes are, and I'm just so nervous. We get a report that all the runners get stopped at mile 25. I'm like, okay, let's just get to mile 25. There's this verse that I've been thinking about constantly this past week, since Boston. It's in Psalms 112:17. And this has become one of my favorite verses. It says, he will have no fear of bad news. His heart is steadfast, trusting in the Lord. And that wasn't my prayer in Boston. And I wish it was. I wish my default setting in my life was to go back to the Bible and say, just recall like Psalms 112:7. He will have no fear of bad news. His heart is steadfast, trusting in the Lord. I wish that was something that I could just like recall and just be thinking about over and over and over. Because we all have this thing in our life. We all have this like default setting that we revert back to when we're scared or lonely or angry. If you think about it, like when you guys were little and whatever happened, like you were scared about, like a thunderstorm or walking in the dark or something. Like I was freaked out of the dark. That's just what I. But when you guys heard something and you were scared, what did you do? Who did you want to run to? Mommy and Daddy. Exactly. A pet. Okay. But that was our default setting when we were young, right? Like I knew when something bad happened, I'm running to my mom. I'm running to my dad because they're going to protect me, right? And we all have that. And then as you grow up, it starts to, you start to mature and it starts to change, and it just changes in like different ways. So you're maybe not running to mom and dad, but you're running to something. You still have that default setting where your mind goes automatically. And is it fear or is it comfort? I wish like crazy that I trained myself that it's something like this. There's also a verse in Luke 12:25. It's also in Matthew. It says, "Who of you by worrying can add a single hour to your life?" There's another thing in my life which I don't love, and it's flying in airplanes. And I remember talking to Uncle Roy 2 years ago and saying, I know I'm silly, but I get all worked up on airplanes. And he's like, well, that's really good because you can add a whole lot of hours to your life by worrying. And I was like, oh, good one, Uncle Roy. So now I think of him when I see this verse, like, who of you can add a single hour of your life just by worrying? Since you cannot do this very simple thing, why do you worry about the rest? God says that something like that, adding hours or taking hours from your life, is something that's so simple to God and you can't even do that, like, why do you worry about other things? So I wish like crazy that I had trained myself to think like this. Because growing up, my parents have trained me, I think fairly well, that I look out for my siblings. Their dad always says, hey, when something bad goes happen, find Kyle and Kara, make sure that they're okay. That's just the way I've always been trained. They've also trained me not to show anger. It's okay to get angry, but you have to still act like a normal human being. Like, you can't just freak out, right? So those are two things that I know that I've been trained very well, and thank you, Mom, for training me that way. And I think a lot of that was the Lord teaching them to teach me and my siblings. That's why me, Kyle, and Kara, we don't really have a big, anger problem. And then when something bad happens, we look for each other. That's just our natural instinct. So that has gone to my friend group, and I think so now I know that when something happens, tragedy, like the Boston Marathon, where you're a block away and you see this blast and you're seeing all this like stuff I wish I didn't see, I know that my instinct is going to kick in. Find my loved ones. I knew Mom and Dad were okay because I was with Dad and I knew Mom was away, but I needed to find Christian because he's my cousin. Like, I didn't care about myself at that time. So I think the Philippians verse, that was one that kicked in. Don't worry about yourself. Like, worry about these other people. But I wish like crazy it was these other verses too. And in the Bible it talks about hiding words in your heart. And it talks about hiding verses in your heart. And that means having stuff memorized so when something happens, when you're alone or scared, or you're facing a big problem, that you can pull something like this out. Who of you, by worrying, can add a single hour to your life? God's saying, why bother worrying? It doesn't really make all that much sense. Because when you worry about something, it just eats away at you. Like, I know when I've been in arguments with people, or I know that I have a conflict or something, and I have to talk to my boss, or I have to talk to my friend, like, this is going to be awkward, this is going to be terrible, what if they get mad at me? Like, that eats away at you from the inside. So it's saying, why bother worrying? And even in situations where there's tragedy, where you don't know, there's mass confusion, you can't talk to anyone, God's in control. Like, as much as I wanted control in that situation, to make sure everyone's okay, I should have just been praying, Lord, calm me down because you got this. That's what my prayer should have been, but it wasn't. So that's why I want to challenge you guys to find verses and scriptures that mean a lot to you. Like, go to Proverbs, go to Psalms, and find verses that mean something to you. So when you hit that default setting, that like scary moments in your life, that anger, or that lonely, that you can go to the verse and go to the Bible, and God can speak to you. Because I know for me, talking to people this week have been great. So I was so touched by turning my cell phone on finally getting 130 text messages. Like, I couldn't respond to them for a while because you guys were all texting me, and thank you so much. That was really, really humbling. But you guys probably noticed I composed a mass text and just send as fast as I could. And then you guys were all so thoughtful and all, and I really appreciate that. But I know it helps me to talk to people. People have been reaching out like crazy, just saying, hey, if you want to talk, I'm here. What can I do to help you, right? So that's been awesome. But God can do that for us too. And if you're constantly in the Word, God's speaking to you. That's what the Bible is. Like, the Bible shouldn't be some chore where you go to because people at Elevate tell you to, or you feel guilty about it. But it should be something that you really, really are tied into because God wants to speak to you through that. So I want that to be my challenge. If you guys like these verses, then use these verses. But there's thousands of verses in the Bible that you can go to. And it's cool because now Instagram is this big thing, and you can post verses on Instagram, and you can see verses online and stuff. But use that. If you find one that means something to you, take it, put it in the background of your phone. Have it start up. Have it as a reminder, something like that. So you can read it and say, I'm going to remain steadfast in the Lord. I'm not going to worry today because I know God's in control. We're going to break up and we're going to talk about what you guys went through this week too, because I know everyone knows where they were and when it happened and all. So, if you guys will bow your head and pray with me, that'd be wonderful. Heavenly Father, you are so good. Thank you so much for the protection this week, making sure that even more people weren't hurt, Lord. We pray that you're with those that were, and the people that lost loved ones this week, Lord. Make it a constant reminder throughout this week that we can go to you, Lord, whenever we need to, and that we can go to the Bible and find out the things that you want to say to us, Lord, because it's not an accident what you have us read each week. Lord, put it in us that as a challenge to want to read these verses, Lord, and want to get closer to you, Lord, because it helps when we talk to other people, Lord, and it helps when we talk to you, when we're ever going through something difficult. Whether we're lonely, scared, angry, or whatever, you're there to comfort us, Lord, and we can run right to your arms and just know that we are safe because we're around you, Lord. Thank you for all that you continue to do in this church and in this ministry and in my life, and we love you more and more. In your name I pray. Amen. Thanks, guys. Love you.